this one side, so it's gonna slowly arrive to its position. And let's see what we have so far. So it's gonna pop in, sun comes in nice and smooth. I'll maybe drag that forward a little bit. It's all about what looks good to you. So I have the sun come in, and now what we're gonna wanna do is, here, I'll just save this to my desktop as motion, I guess. I don't know, I couldn't think of anything in the moment. So now what we're gonna do is just do, select your project window here, do Command-I on your keyboard, or go to File, Import, and let's import our phone. So set your import as to composition, retain layer sizes, and
I just noticed my mountains look nothing like his. Should probably fix that. So I'm going to real quick go back through my mountains, and let's see if I can adjust the size on those. For the most part, yes. Okay. So whenever you're going through, so I want to match my mountains to the mountains in the tutorial. I need to highlight all of the channels that I'm going to be using. See rotation, scale. Click on my relative keyframe. Oops. And then I'm going to increase the size. Let's pick a keyframe. Move that up. That looks pretty close to what he has. Okay, so now I need to take this portion, move that down. There we go. Same thing. Want to take this main keyframe and move that all the way down. So if you just started watching this, I'm basically following a tutorial, an After Effects tutorial about how to create a motion graphic and creating that in Moho. And I realized my design was a little off from the original, which is no big deal, but I want to get it as close as I can to look like the tutorial. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select my channels that I want to affect, turn on my relative keyframe, because now I want everything to be increased in size. And move this over. It's pretty close to the sun there. Increase its size just a little bit. Okay. That looks pretty good. So relative keyframe is a really cool option and can also really screw you up. But any frames that are highlighted, whenever you make a change to one keyframe, it's going to make those changes to all. So I made sure to have my layer scale and my transform layer also highlighted, the whole channel, so it affects all of those. Next thing I need to do is go to my main keyframe of when this mountain should be lowest. Uncheck that because all those highlighted frames will now be affected, but move that down. And then I am going to copy that frame that I just made so that that goes down to the same position. So it should look like this. And there is motion blur on this as well, but you cannot see it inside of Moho. Hey, Sikla. Yeah, this will be on the channel. So, yes. Let me, I guess I could just link to the channel. But yeah, this will be available afterwards. This one I will keep public. A lot of these streams I keep on messing up, so I kind of tend to remove them. But yep, that will be public. And hopefully my microphone is working. Okay, awesome. All right, so now I'm gonna go to the next step on the tutorial. So
what we'll do is actually using colors as much as you can.
oh, that's right. Okay, so I need to import my object. Oh man, I need to remember where everything is. Let's see here. So I created all of these things. Let's see, maybe if I go into Show and Explorer, pull up my objects here. Let's see. So this is gonna be a little bit tricky. I saved the objects somewhere, and I don't remember where exactly on my computer. Oh man, what did I save it under? Actions, animatic, reference, styles, scenes. Was it a scene? No, it's not a scene. References, props. So I went through and I already created all of the things that he's showing. I'll just go ahead and play the tutorial while I'm trying to look for my stuff.
Okay, so now that we have that set up, let's just minimize that. Press U on your keyboard. All right, so I have my sun come in. That's perfect. Now what we're going to want to do is just hide these layers here. And we're going to want to get our elements. So we're going to want to get our mountain and our sun off this, this background so we can transition to our phone. So just select your sun here. Press S on your keyboard. And let's see. So I want it to stay in just for a second. So at about 2 seconds or so, I'm going to set a keyframe on my scale. And I'll just go forward a little bit. Actually size this up to like 120. And then go forward again and set this to 0. And so then I'll select all these layers here and do F9 to make them easy ease, and I'll just keep them standard. So now it's going to pop up for a second and zoom out. I'm actually going to select these 2 back layers here, go into my graph editor, and make sure this is on the speed it is. And I'm going to make sure it actually pops out quicker.
So I'm trying to look for, I did all of
drag
this.
those in so we get a nice spike of
right now
speed.
I'm trying to look for the
so now it should
files that I created.
Yep, perfect. Green,
because I already created the art assets
as my and so what I'm going to
for
make
what
these
he's going to be
icons.
showing here. And this is going to take a little while. So I'm doing a search on my computer to find this asset right here, which should be the phone. And I totally don't remember where I put it. So this is my, actually, you know what? Yeah, that's, I'll just call those mountains. Make it a little bit easier for naming. So right now I'm just doing a search on my computer to find all of the Moho files because I've done a lot as of recent and I do not remember where any of them are. Yeah, this is gonna take a while. Darn it. Totally thought I had these. Well, that's a stream for you. Let's see. Is it on my desktop anywhere? Demo reel. Nope. Of course, there's always something that I'm missing. Okay. Found it. Ah, geez. All right, let's see where it was located. Of course, in the most difficult location to find this stuff. All right, so I'm gonna import it. General import, and it looks like it's going to be oh, no wonder. I have 2 different accounts and I created it on my different account. Hopefully I can access it through here. That is so weird. All right, so I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it from this file. Let's see. Moho Pro saves. I'm going to put it in my props. Okay. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Maybe I should just copy them. Don't want to lose all those. Okay, there we go. All right, so now I'm going to import the different things that I need, which is camera, coffee, and phone. It's going to ask me what I want to import for each thing. I want to import all the different layers that I created. The guide layer, probably not. And then I'll go ahead and hit OK. Same thing, it's going to ask me which layers I want. And the last one. Okay, so now I have all of those. Oh, that's really not that great. So now I need to group these. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to go through and I am going to deselect everything that is there and add it back in and then group those together. So that's lid. Okay, so these right here are a group. This is going to be camera. And then I have my, turn that off, my lid, grip, lid upper, drag that cup. Okay, so that's my coffee. Call that coffee. And then I got my speaker. Oh, hide that button, screen, frame, button. Oh, that's for my camera. So I need to add that button to my camera as well. Hide that again. And that's gonna make up my phone. So I guess I did not put any of these inside of a group, which helps tremendously. Okay, so now I got my phone imported. Check my mountains real quick. Phone, definitely not the same size. So what I'm going to do is resize the layer scale for my phone for the moment to match the mountains, because I don't remember what the animation is that I'm actually supposed to be making from this tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and pop open the tutorial again and play it.
All right, so I have my sun come in. That's perfect. Now what we're going to want to do is just hide these layers here, and we're going to want to get our elements. So we're going to want to get our mountain and our sun off this this background so we can transition to our phone. So just select your sun here, press S on your keyboard, and let's see. So I want it to stay in just for a second. So at about 2 seconds or so, I'm going to set a keyframe on my scale, and I'll just go forward a little bit. Actually size this up to like 120, and then go forward again and set this to 0. And so then I'll select all these layers here and do F9.
Oh, that's right. So something that I forgot is I actually created my own transition. So I'm going to rename this version 2. So I'm just going to do a file save as. Oh, I've been putting it all outside the folder. That's not good. So I'm going to go back to MoGraph. Oh, there it is right there. And I'm going to call this version 2, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the second half of the animation that I created because that was just something short just to end it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the mountains, move that up to the top layer. Okay, so I had it drop down. So I'm going to fix all of that. So I am going to look at my timeline here. Let's see where it all starts. So what I will do instead is I'm going to go to frame 42 right here, and I'm going to create a keyframe for every single layer. Oops, so that's the points. So I want to do, that's interesting. So what I want to do is create keyframes for all these points here for the animation to stop. So I'm going to go through all of my channels and just make sure that the animation is going to stop on all of these keyframes. Then from this point here, I'm going to go to animation, clear animation from after current keyframe from the document. Yeah. So now the animation is simply just going to play out to that position. Okay, so now it's in line with what he had created there. And then from the tutorial, he made the sun bigger and then smaller. So it grows big and then shrinks to 0. So I'm going to deselect all of the layers that I'm not working with at the moment. Just select my sun. And the sun pops up. I actually don't have a... What I probably want to do is this. So my sun origin point for the layer is set pretty far off. I'm going to go ahead and set it right in the center there. Hopefully that doesn't throw anything off, and it doesn't. Good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a channel for my layer scale. I haven't created one yet. So what I need to do is, let's see. So we got that point right there. I don't know how many keyframes he used. Oops. Let's see. Max this up again real quick.
All right, so I have my sun come in. That's perfect. Now what we're going to want to do is just, for this sun here, press S on your keyboard, and let's see, I'm on my scale, and I'll just go forward a little bit, frame on my scale, and
so it looks like it goes about 6 or 7 frames there.
I'll just go forward a little bit, actually size this up to like 120, and then go forward again and set this to 0. And so then I'll select all these layers here and do F9.
I'll just look at this
to make them easy ease, and I'll just keep them standard.
Did.
So now it's going to pop up for a second and zoom out.
Okay, so he's just doing a simple scale transition. So he's going to have it go from this size, then he's going to increase the size. Again, I'll have to play with the timing, but to something like that. This goes boop, and then it shrinks down probably around here to 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my scale. I'm going to set that to 0. And I'll set my, I don't know why my Z axis always gets messed with whenever I'm setting my scale. That could perhaps be a bug for the newer version. I'm not entirely sure. Next thing I'm going to do is for the scaling, I'm going to select, let's see here, what would look good? I'm going to hop over to my motion graph, look at the motion. So this is if I set it on ease in, ease out. And that's a little slow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that last keyframe, I'm going to move that forward a little bit. Okay, there's a little bit of a weird, I guess that would be normal. I'd expect it to fade out a little bit quicker than that though. So what I'm going to do to make it fade a little bit quicker is I'm actually going to create this as a Bezier. And I'm going to set my own speed for this animation. Oh, let's see. So I have multiple handles that I'm going to be working with here. I want to set them all about the same. Yeah, so I don't want to mess with my Z-axis. So let me actually do a right click. I'm going to separate the dimensions. I'm going to turn off the Z. I don't want to do that. And then I have my X and Y. Let's see. That's interesting. So I'm trying to select my Y, which should be highlighted right now. There we go. And I'm just going to do, let's see. Keeps on doing that. So I want to match my Y and my X to the same type of speed there. So I'll reference the two together. Move that kind of like there. Needs to be a little bit quicker. Keeps on bringing back my Z. So right now this is my X-axis I'm changing. So I'm making the transition really quick as far as shrinking down. So from here, it's really steep and then it kind of smooths out. That'll let me know that that's kind of easing at that second keyframe. Okay, so now I want to match my Y-axis to be the exact same thing. Turn my X back on and just line those up just like so. There's a little bit of a weirdness going on where it kind of turns into like an oval shape. All right, and that might look decent with motion blur. So I will leave that just as it is. And that's fine. Okay, let's hop back in the tutorial.
I'm actually going to select these two back layers here, go into my graph editor, and make sure this is
mess with the
on the
speed a little
speed
bit.
it is.
Kind of what I was just
and
doing.
I'm going to make sure it actually pops out quicker. So I'm just going to do this and this, drag those in so we get a nice spike of speed.
Okay.
So now it should, yep, perfect. So that pops out real quick. And we're also going to drop our mountains out of the view. So just press P to bring up your position properties. Set a keyframe at about when the sun is getting big, and just set a keyframe here. Go forward a little bit, and I'm just going to drag these off the frame.
Okay,
here.
so he's going to move those simultaneously. So both of those mountains. So actually what he did is he took this from here to here. He made this drag out just a little bit longer as far as the timing goes. I'm actually going to set, so I don't screw this up, rejoin the dimensions for my scale. Dang it, and I already messed it up. So let's try it again. So just rejoin the dimensions. So he took that, oops. Oh man. All right, I'm just gonna move these back to smooth because I can't figure out what's going on there. For some reason, my Z-axis keeps on getting touched every time I mess with the scale. And it shouldn't be at all. So I'll just leave that like that. So the next thing that he did is he said as this was going up, I think, let me look at it again.
And I'll just go forward a little bit. Actually size this up to like 120 pairs here. So now it's my graph to make this. Yep, perfect. So just press P to bring up your position. I'm going to drop our mountains out of the view. So just press P to bring up your position properties. Set a keyframe at about when the sun is getting big, and just set a keyframe here.
Okay. And then
go forward a little bit, and I'm just...
So he's going to have the mountains and the sun drop out at the same time. So I said to create a keyframe when the sun is getting big. So it's probably going to be right about here. I'm going to select my mountains, both the layers, hit M on my keyboard to select the translation, create a keyframe. I'm actually going to have my sun in there so I can see where that end keyframe is, and it looks like it's right here. And then I'm going to drag those out. Okay, so I'm guessing that's how he's got it, how he has it right now. I could probably actually move these in just a little bit more. And then my guess is he's probably going to have the two mountains timed differently, which we can do here in a minute. So let's go ahead and
Going
play
to
this.
drag these off the frame here. And also, once again, I'll just highlight 2 of them and maybe stagger them a little bit so they don't
Okay,
drop.
so yeah, he's going to stagger the animation. So in this case, if I was to stagger him, I would do the back mountain afterwards. So I'll do mountain far. Oops. Let's see here. So I'll have the animation for the mountain far. Let's see my second layer one. Yeah. So I'll have that one end or fall down sooner. Okay, so there's a little bit of a staggering effect. So the further mountain moves down before the closer mountain.
Drop out at the same time. So that looks fine. I might go into my graph editor. Actually, I'm not going to worry about it. We'll keep it basic. So right now we have the sun come in. We have the mountains come out. And what we're now going to want to do is resize our screen. This actually worked out perfectly. I seriously didn't plan this when I first made these icons, that they transition really well to each other. So that was kind of a nice accident, I guess. So I'm actually going to select my all my layers except for my which ones am I getting? Yeah, so except for my picture frame, my picture back, and my pick alpha, and just do alt front bracket to cut them, because now I just don't need to see them anymore in my timeline once they have moved off the screen. So that's nice to keep our timeline nice and clean.
My cursor was on it.
Okay, so I'm going to save that real quick. And now what I'm going to do is just turn on my phone layer and press T on my keyboard to bring up my opacity and just turn.
Yeah, so lucky for him, his graphics were the same size. Mine, however, are not. So that's going to be a little bit tricky. So what I'm actually going to do is set my graphics so that they're all the same size, because that's what it looks like is important at the moment. So I have my camera. I'm going to move that above real quick just so I could size it to the mountains. And I'm going to do this all on frame 0. That's going to be the best thing to do. Let's see. Yeah. So I will change that to match that size approximately. Let's see. So that's in the center. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to hit Alt to drag from the center and out. And then just move that with Control and then the arrow key. Shrink that down just a little bit. What I could probably do with the mountains, the X and Y scale. The X scale I think would be the same. So let me do that for the camera. Negative. All right, yeah, so I'm just gonna have to eyeball it. So it's gonna be somewhere. So it's kind of hard to see with the layer translation lines. But I'm basically just trying to get this to match up in size. Which isn't really making sense because there's some weird white outline around this, but technically it is matched up. Probably not pixel perfect. Okay, it's not pixel perfect. So I gotta figure out how I can drag this out. So I'm gonna go zoom in just a little bit more here. Okay. Oops, so somewhere right there. And then I should have, what's pretty good to have is some sort of guide layer, which I think I had, but I didn't import it in. So what I'll do real quick is I'm going to select one of the objects that I just imported. I know they all had the exact same guide layer. I'm gonna go to my props. So I'm just gonna select like the camera, and it was this one right here. So, okay, so that's already offset. Darn it. But that's what I had for a guide layer, so that's not gonna be any use anymore because I already had these really off. So I'm just gonna have to eyeball these essentially and just see what works. And just move back over here. Good grief. And make sure that is still lined up okay. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to drag this out a tiny bit. Nope, that's too far. So yeah, there's kind of a lot of hard parts when it comes to Moho and lining things up for motion graphics. You don't really have too many things to work with. There is an align layer, but I can't really ever get it to work. So I have my camera and my mountain, which is that frame right there. And if I wanted to line those up horizontally and vertically, the origin points themselves would have to be in the exact same place. So it's pretty much useless in this case because my origin points aren't in the exact same place. So something like that looks okay. And then sounds like I got a ding or something. So let me see if that means someone messaged me. So let me take a look here. What is up, John? All right, so let's see here. Then I got my coffee. So let me bring that up above my camera now. And again, it sounds like he wants to keep all of these around the same size. So that's what we're also going to aim for. So this is exactly in the center, supposedly. And then I'm going to hit Alt and then drag out from the center. And it's not. So again, I got to eyeball it. So whenever it comes to motion graphics or any sort of graphics, having things perfectly aligned is what you're aiming for. But when it comes to Moho, that is definitely one of the things it lacks, is alignment tools. So usually in that case, you got to make your own, which I had before when I was creating these designs. But for some reason, when I imported these, I guess I never put them into a group layer, so they had nothing to help maintain its size, which was kind of odd. That was a design flaw on my end. Okay. And I'll just stretch this up a couple pixels so that it lines up at the top there. All right. And the next one was the phone. Phone was almost there. Just increase the size a little bit more. Down there and at the top here. Again, as far as the tutorial goes, this is my first time creating a motion graphic in Moho. It's definitely a lot easier to do in After Effects, especially when following tutorials. So this could be a little bit tricky transitioning the two, but that looks pretty good right there. All right, so now I have all of that set up. I'm gonna go back to the tutorial. So technically he has all of these hidden. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go back to my mountains, uncheck those so I have more space in my timeline. Go to my phone, coffee, and camera, select those layers, come over here to frame 1. I'm going to make all of those invisible. Okay, I thought I could do that all at once. Apparently not. So I'm just going to go through and move those. Yeah, if you're asking me questions or anything, there is about oh geez, I didn't know it's a 2 to 3 minute lag. But yeah, there's going to be quite a lag on my end simply because I have a crappy upload. All right, so that looks pretty good. And then somewhere in here, he's going to bring in those objects once again. So let's go back to the tutorial and let's see where we left off.
this down just so I can still see what's going on behind it.
Okay, so let's see what he's saying.
Which ones am I getting? Yeah, so except for my picture frame, my picture back, and my pick alpha, and just do alt front bracket to cut them, because now I just don't need to see them anymore in my timeline once they have moved off the screen. And now what I'm going to do is just turn on my phone layer and press T on my keyboard to bring up my opacity and just turn this down just so I can still see what's going on behind it. And so what I'm going to do now is, as these elements are starting to slide out and almost all the way out, so like about here, I'm going to go into my picture frame and press S to bring up my scale and just set a keyframe. Make sure your constraint proportions icon is off right here, and just go forward a little bit and scale on my X until it is roughly the same size as my phone layer. And you can zoom in and really get it accurate if you want, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Just get it kind of close.
Lucky for him, everything's aligned perfectly.
And just select those two layers. They should be easy ease. If they're not, you can fix that.
So he's just going to
zoom in on these and
speed.
Just give it a little bit of a different look. So it looks, add a little bit of interest to your motion.
There.
So it's going to resize pretty decently. And now let's go onto our phone layer here and press T to turn your opacity back up to 100%. I'm going to do Command D, and I'm going to name this Phone Alpha. And we're going to be doing the same little trick that we've done for other ones, where I will actually grab this track mat here and set it to an alpha.
That track mat is something that'd be super helpful. And one of the things I just realized is my little window here is probably in the way. So I'll move that top right corner, because we're not messing with the style right now. All right. John asked the question if I use Motion Artist from Smith Micro. Motion Artist, I think, is more, it's more comic based. It's just like animating, I would say, transitions and maybe camera movement for comics. I haven't given it a try yet myself. Simply because I've been using After Effects more so than anything. But yeah, so I haven't actually tried Motion Artist. I looked into it to see what it was exactly, and I think it still has a little bit more time to go to develop to become something pretty robust like After Effects. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do, or that he did in this case, is he put the phone in front of the mountains. I'm going to bring back my visibility. And then, see, I had to have these things. What is going on? So I need to move my mountain. Something happens to my mountains to where on my design frame, frame 0, it's moving over from frame 30. Which isn't good. That's screwing up my alignment already. So I'm trying to think what I need to do here. Shoot. So what I should probably do is I should grab my, let's see, did I create? This is going to be messy. So I'm going to create a keyframe for my entire image here and center that. Then I'm going to grab that keyframe that I just created. I'm going to cut it and I'm going to paste it into my design. So for whatever reason, that keeps on moving. I can't figure out why. What the heck? So even when I cut that same frame that I just created to hold my position, it still changes. And that can almost be like a breaking point for me there, just to stop and recreate the whole thing, because my guess is because it's creating a Z axis. Every time I'm moving this thing around or making it bigger or smaller, it's increasing my Z axis. So let me see if I have some sort of preference that's on that's not supposed to be on, because that is incredibly annoying. Auto name new shapes, auto assist with bone locking keyframes. Auto assist. I have no clue what that is. Auto center, enabled note layers scaling, scale compensation for new layers. Yeah, that's one of the things that happens when you live stream versus when you do something that you're prepared to do, is you run into a lot of issues. I don't know why it would be doing that. It's still messing with my Z axis every time I move it around. So that's very annoying. And I think that's what's throwing off my animation whenever I go from frame 30 to my design frame. I want to be able to keep those things in place, and I can't, because there's no way to keep that frame. So I'm simply just copying and pasting. That doesn't make any sense to me. The scale, the position, everything's still the same, but for some reason it's moving. The phone's not moving, but my positioning is moving. You know what? It's probably point animation. No. What the heck? It's not my points. I do have a separate one for frames though. Okay. That helps. So I'll take that and I'll make that. There we go. Okay. One thing to be aware of is definitely all of your layers, everything that's inside of it. So I actually found out it wasn't my group layer that had moved. It was my frame that I had moved, or translated, I should say. So now it's working. Besides that, but that's okay, because that's nothing. That's just extra. All right, so that's very good. Okay, so now when I go to frame 0, everything should now be aligned correctly. Again, we're gonna do the coffee. So that looks like it's pretty much in the center there. Again, I can't center horizontal that for some reason. Yeah, you can copy and paste the transformation values, John. But I think what I just figured out right there was the layer translation was off on my other layer. So I had my main group layer, and then I translated the frame layer, which really screwed something up there. So that's kind of a rookie mistake there on my end. Okay, so everything looks like it's more centered now, which is perfect. So this should smooth a lot more, flow a lot more smoothly. This, I'm actually going to find out what this is. So my sky, same type of thing. I can actually now take this keyframe and center it for my sky, maybe? No, probably not, because it might be a group. Yep, and it looks like it's a point animation deal. So I'll take these keyframes. Nothing. Oh, I was clicking on my mountains. Oh. What the heck? So let's see. So that looks like there's some more frames there to copy. Oh, plus a layer translation. So very important. One of the things you need to make sure is keep your design the same way that you want it to be on when you're animating. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-D. So this is just a quick keyboard shortcut to go from my main frame to the design frame. And I'm going to copy and paste those. There we go. And then I'm going to delete those keyframes that I just made. That's just for reference. Okay, very good. All right. So I somehow really screwed all of that up. So now I'm going to go into my phone, bring that back up to the top. And so what he was doing in the animation is he was saying as the mountains were going down. Okay, something weird is happening. Let's take the phone out. Oops. I put that in the wrong spot. So I actually needed to make this over here. So my phone isn't going to be visible until the mountains themselves go down. I was doing it when they were going up. All right, so there we go. So we have that now set in the right spot. So I'm going to go back to my mountains there. And I'm going to create a keyframe for the width. And then, like he was doing, I'm going to make this also transparent to, let's say, 50. Oh, man. That is one thing. For some stinking reason, your transparency, your opacity isn't going to show up as transparent in the preview window, which is really annoying. Yeah, it's just going to show it in your final render. So I can't do what he was doing there. So that's right. Forgot about that. So what I need to do then, I don't even know. Let me see if I can use some sort of blending mode. Yep, blending modes don't even work in my preview. So that's something that is also going to be really difficult when you're trying to do motion graphics, is a lot of these things you need to be able to see through so you can see when your translations should be taking place. But in this case, I'm going to do something else to kind of make up for that. See, now this isn't going to center properly either. So basically, this transitions down to here. And if I did this correctly, this should shrink to the same phone size, but it's not. I thought there was a way you could move one side and not the other. Edit motion path. I don't know what that is. Shift. It's freezing on me. It froze. Okay, let's see what's going on. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to move just one side of my layer without moving them in uniform or unison or whatever. Oh boy. Let me tell you, it is very hard to follow an After Effects tutorial in Moho. My origin point is not exactly in the center for my frame. I have a feeling if I move this, it's not visible. If I move this, I don't know how to get it exactly in the middle. I guess that would be the center. I don't know. That looks like it would be the center. So my origin point for my position was not exactly centered. If it was, this would work a lot better. So I'm going to have to find a workaround using point animation. Oh, look at there. It wants to move again. So I don't want that to move out of place. So I'll just copy that keyframe back to the same spot. Okay, so what I'm going to do instead now, I'm going to move the mountains the closest as I can to the center of the phone there to match up with the phone. Let's see. Man, I don't know. So the animation is supposed to transition to this phone. So it's supposed to turn into this phone essentially. And one of the benefits that you have in After Effects are the track mats. And as you can see there, I don't have that ability because it's warping my image altogether. So what I can do is I can actually manipulate the points. Okay, and I do have some point. I have not created any point animation yet. So what I'll do is I'll manipulate this to by point animation, which does allow me to move each end individually. Then I'll do the same for that side there. Okay. The only disadvantage I think for points animation is you can't edit them in Bezier. I think you can, but you can only select one point at a time, if I remember right. So if I select that point and I go to the Bezier, it's only 1 point. So if I have multiple points selected, it disappears, which is not very useful. But I can kind of see why that is. So I have to just use some other keyframe interpolation. So this is just to show you essentially that you can technically animate an After Effects using an After Effects tutorial, but it's going to take a lot of tweaking. And as you can see, a lot. I'm going to turn my frame and my sky on so I can match those keyframes up. So just kind of eyeballing this. Okay, I can see where that was. Okay, so it looks like it was somewhere around there. And same thing, I'm going to do, let's see, what was the keyframe I used? Ease in, ease out. So I'll do the same, same for these. I'll do an ease in, ease out. All that work for that. Very cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my phone. And this should be invisible. I'm going to deselect these points. So my phone should be invisible till here, I think. I think that's what he's wanting to do. So the transition should be somewhere around there. And as you can see, my points need a little bit more tweaking. So I'm going to select my frame. Oop, shoot. I just want to move the point, not the entire thing there. I just want that to be transitioning smoothly into that phone. But there's a lot of things I can't see until I render it. So I kind of just need to tweak it. See, I can't see that. So I'm just going to move it in a little bit more, render it. Same thing with the top of my phone, the bottom of my phone. All right, cool. So now I have to figure out what his transition is, what he did for this particular transition. So I'm going to hop back into the tutorial and check it out because I haven't made it this far yet.
And then on my phone layer, press P for position and go forward a bit and set a position keyframe, and then go back and just drag my, here I'll actually move my window, and I'm just going to drag this up until it's not in the frame. So now once my back has like morphed to the right size, I'm going to actually have my color of my next object sliding over the top, and it's going to...
Oh, beautiful. There is something I can't even do. So he's using a track mat. He's using his track mat on the mountain layer and the phone layer. Good grief. So I'm running into a lot of limitations of things that I can't do in Moho. And this is one of them. So, I can technically still do what he's doing. It's just not going to look that good. So I'm trying to think of how I'm going to do this. Man. So basically what I would need is some sort of mask right here. And this mask is going to be set to reveal all of these assets. So I'm trying to think of how I'm going to do this. Okay, so I'm going to create, I don't know if this is going to work. So I'm going to go back to my design. I'm going to create a vector, and I'm going to call this mask. And the mask is going to be the same size as the frame. So what I'll do actually is I'll take this frame size and I'll create a mask from it. Let's see. And for this mask, I think a color is okay. I don't know why, but when I copied and pasted that frame, it did not keep its place. So let's try that again. All right, and it wants to move again. That's great. Let me go to my preferences here. I think it's auto centering, which it doesn't center, so I don't know why it does that. Auto center new layers. So let's try that one more time. So I'm going to select my my frame. I'm going to copy and paste it. What in the heck? So it basically keeps on resetting my positioning every time I copy and paste it. I can't position it in the exact same place upon pasting. So I will have to do this manually. So with Control C, I'm just moving this into place here. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a mask. Okay, and I think that's about right. So now I have this mask here with this one piece. And I'm going to go to the layer here. I'm going to create a mask, hide all. So all of the assets should now be masked inside of here. So when I move this up and down, this is going to work as a track mat of sorts. The only reason why I couldn't do this in the mountains is you can't create a mask inside of a mask. Or at least I don't think you can. You can't see it in this preview window, and you can't see in the render, but I heard if you do it in the final render, which I didn't give it the time of day, you can see it in the final render, but I didn't want to bother with that. So what I did is I created a track mat of sorts. So what he did is right here, he has the the asset right here, let's see, we'll have that visible. I will control the points themselves, and I will drag those up. Let's see, if I set my Y to 0, that does nothing. So I have to eyeball it again. I don't know what the heck the origin placement is on this thing. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to animate these points to be exactly centered here. And that's probably about as close as I could get it. And luckily it doesn't really show up on my thing there. So great, so now I have that set. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my original points. I'm gonna bring those down so it should do the transition. Cool. And that's probably as far as I'm gonna get today. I definitely ran into a ton of roadblocks. This wasn't as smooth as I thought it'd be, but this is just to show you that honestly you can do an After Effects tutorial in Moho. You just have to think outside the box. You can't do exactly what they're doing because Moho isn't really created for motion graphics. It's more for character animation. If I was doing my own motion graphic, I could obviously plan this out a lot smoother, but because I'm following a tutorial, I kind of gotta do it the way that he's doing it to make it work, and then just find a workaround to make those limitations that Moho has currently work the same way they would in After Effects. All right, so that's about it. That's as far as I was able to get with this stream here. But if you have any questions, feel free to comment on the video itself. This video will be uploaded to YouTube if you're not already watching it there. All right, so that's pretty much it for now, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know there was, again, kind of, how long was this? This was about an hour, and I didn't get as far as I was hoping to at all because I just had to figure it out, how to make things work. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you